I love art for the soul, and I love and respect Rosemary Tracy Woods. Every time that she creates an event, she does it with love. She does it with generosity, and she does it for all the right reasons. You know, Tracy's not about Tracy. Tracy is truly about community in such a genuine way. So to be part of anything, anytime with Tracy is joyful. But this is particularly joyful because I really loved, even though I couldn't physically be there, I loved seeing the art of our community and just how much brilliance there is in the Latinx community of Western Massachusetts. I mean, the Latinx community is brilliant all over the world. But to see our neighbors creating such beautiful and meaningful work is, you know, how can you not feel joyful about that? You know, for me, one of the things that gives me the most joy is celebrating other people, you know, and for me to be part of it is to honor and celebrate all of my fellow artists, all of the artists. You know, it's like I say, thank you for welcoming me. I'm so happy to be part of this gorgeous thing. Yeah. Está hecho con corazón y alma. ¿A quién no le va a gustar? Bueno, a los racistas, pues que se vayan.
When we talk about work made with heart and soul, like you just rightfully said, it is important to also honor and celebrate you because you are part of this exhibit and you are part of this community and part of this vibrant energy that makes it present every day with art, with energy, with activism, with your representation and your identity being everywhere in any capacity that you can do. And that feels that is a mission that you have established upon yourself and that you love doing.
Yes, it's been my whole life. I started being a cultural worker at the age of 17, and I've never stopped because I do not separate art from activism, and I do not separate arts from human connection. We create opportunities and pathways for people to experience in the work of others their own experience. One of the things that makes me really happy after I do a poetry reading or have a play produced is when I hear people tell their own stories afterwards because they were inspired to tell their stories. And that excites me more than anything. You know, I like them to forget about me when it's over. You know, I want them to think about what is in them, and it happens. It's so, I love people when they come and tell me, oh, that reminded me of my grandmother, or that reminded me of the first time that I had enlightenment, or, you know, that reminds me of the first time I fell in love, or my first march, or, you know, it doesn't matter, whatever. I'm just excited when people responden en una manera que they claim ownership. They claim ownership with my work together. They claim ownership of their memories. Does that make sense?
It totally does.
Like I want my work to belong to them. And one of the reasons that I create work that is accessible, first of all, my mother could not read or write. And so my mission originally, I was just about being an oral storyteller and a live poet. So at 17, I started, you know, at an open mic. And for me, it was all about reaching the audience and communicating with intimacy. It was all about intimacy and reaching people at all levels of literacy, and that there are many kinds of literacy. There's not just one literacy. Reading and writing is not everything. My mother was an amazing fashion designer and an amazing seamstress. She was brilliant. She just couldn't read or write. But that's not an impediment to creativity, imagination, and genius. So for me, originally, it was all about doing readings. And then people started telling me, well, as you get older, you know, you need to document your work. And then at readings, I would have editors come to me and ask me to publish my work. So that's how I started publishing. People started asking for my work. And then I said, okay, I can do this. But as you know, I didn't do a full book of my own poetry until 2014. because that's not what my vision or mission was. But as I'm getting older, I understand legacy. And I understand that we need to leave behind a document, a chronicle of who we are and what we've done for those who come after us. So now I'm very committed to being published.
But it's amazing to see how strongly you still represent this concept, this fundamental historical way of creating legacy, utilizing oral history, the way of passing on the knowledge in that organic, human, physical way that is the storytelling, passing on to
Yes.
someone that you decide to take under your wing, in hopes that that person will do the same and pass it forward to next generations and people belonging to the community, and even the ones that do not, just for the sake of keeping this legacy alive, this history, this pride, and the way that sometimes even having it documented in paper and different mediums is not completely tangible to perceive when you have that energy that comes from the sound of the voice.
Yes, and I feel grateful to have a voice because not everyone does. And I didn't always have a voice. I mean, I grew up with, being silenced. So I had to fight that. I had to really stand up, and yo luché por tener voz y confianza en sí. Eso no me vino fácil. So I worked for it and I worked hard. And I made a decision very young that my work would be to create spaces where people could find their voices. And that because I knew the oppression of not having one, and I knew the liberation of finding it. And I knew how much more I could give to the world in the liberation of my voice. And so I wanted other people to have that experience as well. And I don't like that word empowerment. It really bothers me because I find it condescending, like somehow I'm going to bestow power on someone else. What I like to provide is tools for people's self-determination. And if they choose to have a voice and the tools are helpful to them, then I'm really grateful. Nothing makes me happier than seeing a very quiet person who wants to speak, because some people are quiet by nature and that's who they are. And I celebrate that that's who they are. Some people are that way out of being oppressed or fearful, or bad experiences that they've had. And those are the people that I want to let them know you can be free. If you only knew my story, you would be so surprised at how free I am.
One thing that stuck up on me when I saw your performative piece for this exhibit is this mention of how important it is to listen to other languages, even if you don't understand them, because you can connect with the emotions that those words have, because the words by themselves are tools of liberation, because are powerful ways of speaking truth and life. So what does it mean for you to be able to communicate with the community through this exhibit, utilizing not only one, but two languages that you are fluent on?
I'm so grateful. I wish I were fluent in 10 of them. And if I had to do my life over, that's something I would really focus on, is learning as many languages as possible. But one of the things I have learned is that language is not always necessary to communicate, because language is not just spoken. Language is gesture. Language is eyes. Language is body language. There are so many ways to communicate. One of my students asked me, how come when you teach, your hands are always open like this? And I said, I was so happy they noticed. It was an 8th grader. And I said, because I hope that will welcome you. I hope that my hands open like this say that, I am here for you. And I welcome what you have to think. But just that she noticed it meant so much to me. You always speak with your hands open. to us. And those are the things that you learn a lot from your students when you work with young people. You learn from them every day. So it's really a community of learners. It's not, the teacher. It's all of us sharing from our experiences, our knowledge, and our own wisdom. And that comes at all ages. And I remember I lived in India for 4 months. And I went to very small villages in the south of India to schools. And I don't speak any of I think there are over 900 languages in India, not dialects, but languages. And I don't speak any of them. And I actually did workshops spontaneously. I just would go into the school. A lot of the teachers spoke English. The children did not. And we had, not yet, a lot of them were very little. They were still learning and growing. And I just went in and did theater workshops with them. And it worked. And language was not needed. I did a lot of work. I did 10 years of volunteering in AIDS wards. And in those AIDS wards, I learned that there are so many things that transcend language. So many things. Getting into the bed against the doctors would scold me. I would get into bed with the patient sometimes and just hold them like a mother, because that's what they needed. And a lot of times the mothers would come back because they would get jealous that this woman had taken over, and then I could step away. But I guess what I'm saying is how much I learned there, how much I learned from the sick and the dying. Some of my greatest teachers were in the AIDS wards. And the very first time I went in, the young man was 26. I didn't know him. I was asked to visit him. And I was very nervous. It was my first time I was afraid of being stupid. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. And I admitted it to him. I said, Charles, I have to tell you something. I'm feeling very awkward. And he goes, why don't you go out? He took off his glasses, right? And he put them down and he said, why don't you try going out and come back in and just say hello and let's start over. Isn't that beautiful? What a great teacher, right? And the way he did it with such love and humility. And after that, forget it. I was commuting from Massachusetts every weekend to be down there. And so I just learned so much from people all the time. I think that people who are xenophobic, that's the right word, right? Xenophobic, racist, mean, cruel, closed off, they don't experience life to the fullest. They only live half a life. Because if you are not open to others, to their language, to their beingness, to their differences, you lose out on everything. You cannot be whole unless you receive the wholeness of others. You can't be. It's impossible. We can't do it without each other. And that's not codependence, that's coexistence. So.
And this, I think, is also one of the foundations and the main ingredients of resilience. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, and being as we are right now, talking to each other virtually because COVID, and because this is the way that we have to continue coexisting somehow. How do you feel being part of this exhibit, Roots, Raíces, with this strong, bien arraigada presencia of our roots and of our heritage, even in isolation, but still being able to present to the public the work of several artists that are gathering and representing more than ever in the middle of this pandemic? How do you feel being able to do this?
I feel honored. I feel grateful. I feel happy. Being able to share, I intentionally shared that poem in Spanish. That was very intentional, knowing that non-Spanish speakers would also see the exhibit and making the point that, when we hear a different language, it touches parts of our brain that usually are not activated. And it is to our benefit to hear things that we haven't heard before. Because if all you hear is what you've heard before, how can you grow? And how can you learn? If all you see is what you've seen before, then how how can you see new? How can you find other ways to see? And with that exhibit, what I see this beautiful, vibrant art that is alive. I could hear music in the colors. I could the painting of the three sides of what it means to be Boricua, que es el africano, europeo, taíno. You know that painting, right? I saw that and I said, oh my God, I want that painting. And I noticed there was already a little red dot on it. and the bomba, I think that was Jose Escribano, right? The bomba piece. It's like people, it's an opportunity for those who are not from our many cultures. In this case, predominantly Boricua, ¿verdad? In the exhibit, was it predominantly Boricua?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. But we are many cultures, and that's another thing that people understand, that we are not one culture, we are multiple cultures. We have a shared experience of a spiritual connection, that when we speak Spanish and we're Latinos, we find each other wherever we are, and we can feel some commonality spiritually, but we're also very different. And people need to honor and respect that and see that and experience that. And I really enjoyed that exhibit shows, when people say Black Lives Matter, that's all Black lives, Pan-African Black lives. And one of the terms that I really don't like is African American, because that's only one group of people. I'm a Pan-Africanist, and I know Black Mexicans and Black Asians, and so an African American is one group, but you cannot say that all Black people are African Americans. And my family, as melanin deprived as I am, my family is Black, blonde, everything in my family. I grew up with that. I grew up seeing that. And I also grew up seeing the colonization of the white people in my family and their fear of their own Blackness. And I still see that when I hear Latinos say, yo no soy negro, yo soy indio. That is a self-loathing. There is a self-loathing there when they clearly have dark skin and they don't want to claim the Blackness of their skin. And for me, as white as I look, if there were only two boxes to check, I would not check white, because that is not who I am. How I look and who I am are not the same. And that's a very difficult concept to get across to people. I try to make it clear that I understand I have white privilege. I will not be followed in a store. I will be given a certain deference because of my skin until I speak. And the minute I say Magdalena Gómez, all bets are off. And I'm very intentional about, in marriage, keeping my name. And something that my husband absolutely supported. It never even occurred to him that I would take his name. And, it's very important to me that people know who I am right away. And I claim my multiple racial identity with joy. And I know that I am a multiracial person. My father was Gitano, and my father's mother was what Gitanos refer to as morena, which, if you hear that in some cultures, is very insulting, and it's a slur. In the south of Spain, to the Gitanos, morena is the height of beauty. To be dark-skinned is a beautiful thing, and it's a word of honor and praise to women. And so, I'm a kind of a citizen of the world. My grandfather was Arab. So, yo soy un asopao de todo.
What it will be for you, the feelings, thoughts, emotions that people visiting this exhibit, Roots, Raíces, would like you to have an experience by being there, seeing, feeling, experiencing this exhibit?
What I want people to feel First of all, I want the Boricuas who see that exhibit to feel the joy of who they are and where they've come from. I want them to feel not only pride, but celebration, to honor themselves and where they have come from, and to understand that we are multiracial people, and that that's shown in that exhibit. And that's very important, that that diversity of who we are is apparent there. I want people who go there who know nothing about our culture and who perhaps make many assumptions about our culture to have an awakening moment where they go, oh, I didn't know that, and receive the fact that they didn't know that, and see how they can start to educate themselves and ask themselves, why didn't I know that? Because I think that's something that's very important for where people go into an exhibit and, oh, what's bomba? And why don't I know that? Because you weren't taught that in school. Because Puerto Ricanos and our history has been excised from the books. And that is something that we need to fight for, to make the curriculums of our schools as diverse as the people who live here in this country. And when people say, oh, speak English, this is America, you know what I say to them? Speak Spanish, because this is the Americas. And I hope that that exhibit will help people to, generally people who are drawn to art, I don't know if they're going to be so close-minded if they're going to an art exhibit. But what I do find is that when people go to exhibits, they do come with preconceived notions of what constitutes art. And people need to understand that not everyone has to go to art school to be a great artist. They need to understand that technique matters less than heart and soul. And that's one of the things about, I would like to see more representation of our communities in the Springfield museums. I want to see genuine representation of our peoples in all museums, because museums need to serve the communities in which they are housed, the communities that are supporting them, and the people that are visiting them. And I think that museums have to make a more, an effort like the one that Rosemary Tracy Woods has made. Rosemary Tracy Woods and Billy Myers, who are, the chief curators, and we had Ashley Zirk Pereira curating this. Thank you so much, Ashley. You did a great job. Well, let's hear it for Ashley. Mm-hmm. and for Tracy to have the wisdom to invite her to do it. Tracy has such an open mind and heart, and she exhibits the work of a diversity of people. And I feel that her gallery has represented the people of our community. Now in Springfield, there is a community that we have not really connected with yet, and that is the Vietnamese community. And the Vietnamese community is a very large percentage of our population in Springfield. And I think there needs to be a very intentional development of connection and trust among us. I think that now in the time of COVID, to be ethnocentric can be dangerous because it makes us smaller. I understand the need to take pride in who you are and to say, yo soy boricua y soy orgullosa de ser boricua. That is important, but not to the point that we don't connect with each other. We need to have BIPOC unity. There needs to be a unity where we stand up for each other. And I have loved seeing Latinos for Black Lives Matter, Asians for Black Lives Matter, Indigenous for Black Lives Matter. People have been taking very intentional stands in the support of Black people in the United States. And people are understanding their connection. We are, 65% in Springfield, people of color? Mm-hmm. Then we should be in charge. And my question is, why aren't we? And I think that in unity, we can find the answer to that.
It's just fascinating listening to you, because this is the point of art.
Yes.
To inspire, and at the same time, to disrupt.
Yes.
Art is disruptive, and,
Yes.
and it generates ideas that, yes, may not be necessarily comfortable for many, but that's another way to express, another way to represent, another way to make the presence of ideas and expressions to be tangible through an expression that can be interpreted, that can be passed on as well. This is another way to, and talking about language, a language that doesn't need specific words, that doesn't need to be understood word by word, but that transmits an idea.
Amari Baraka's wife, Amina, at an event at UMass, she said that when she's asked, you know, she hears the term, my people, she says, what I ask is, what side are you on? And those are my people. I find out what side they're on. And I just love that she said that. And I feel the same way. And I don't feel that my job as an artist is to make people comfortable. If I make people comfortable, then there's some part of me that is not being expressed. Because we are living in very uncomfortable times, and the United States of America have always been uncomfortable and have asserted a lot of evil to people of color. And anyone with a conscience cannot deny that. And I think it's very important that we not go along to get along. I have often been rejected and exiled for my political views. And what makes me dangerous is that I don't mind cleaning a toilet for a living. So if you're going to reject me because I don't agree with you, or because I call out the depravity of what we have done to indigenous lives, to Black lives, to the poor, to Puerto Ricans, the colonialism of Puerto Rico, the sterilization of our women. What, I'm supposed to not say that? I'm supposed to be polite? It's not my job to be polite. It's my job to say the truth. I am open to being corrected, but I am not open to being shut down. And I am not open to being at a meeting and not speaking because I know it's going to cost me. Peace has a price, and I'm willing to pay it. And I think that it's really important that in these times, we not hold back the fullness of who we are and the truth of who we are. And it's not easy to be who I am. I've paid a big price for it my entire life. And I call out sometimes my own people. I called out colorism in my people decades ago. Now it's a thing. You know, now at least it's being talked about. When I was talking about it, nobody else was. And I was shunned for it. I have been exiled and economically censured for refusing to pledge allegiance since I was in elementary school. I think the last time I pledged allegiance, perhaps I was in the 6th grade. And when I saw Colin Kaepernick do it, I was like, yes! You know, because flags separate us. Because a flag says, I am not you. Religion says, I am not you. I understand the purpose of all of it. And I understand people's need for it. And I understand how it can be used for a greater good and a greater purpose. But when it's used to separate us, that's where I draw the line. And my being an artist is my way of not pledging allegiance. And I just remember thinking, I'm being asked to make a promise, but I don't understand what these words mean. And so when we do it, we're teaching children to be complicit in doing something that they don't understand, making a promise they don't know if they can keep. And I don't know how this connects to the Art for the Soul exhibit, but I think that it does. because I think that when we assert ourselves in a public space through our creative voices, that is also a political act. And the work itself doesn't have to be political in nature. It does not have to be a painting of Lolita Lebrón, although I gotta say, I love those. Yasmin Hernandez, perdona. Yasmin, I don't know if you know her work. She's a Puerto Rican painter. Mm-hmm. Oh, she's out of this world. Shout out to Yasmin Hernandez and her political work. But, you know, sometimes just to be ourselves is a political act.
How would you encourage people to continue celebrating this National Hispanic Heritage Month 2020 while in isolation? But that is not a barrier, not for us to celebrate and continue feel proud of who we are.
Absolutely. And not only in this month, but also every day. I think that we have to get to the point in our world where we don't need months, because the unity has happened in such a way. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but there must be coming a point where we don't need a gay pride march, where we don't need Latino month, where we don't, you know, where it's absolutely understood that all of us are integral to this history. And how I encourage Latinx people and Boricuas and, you know, anyone who is of a Spanish-speaking country to celebrate themselves is make use of your library. Introduce yourself to people you may not know. And don't only learn about your own Latino culture. There are many cultures of Latinidad, and we are many people. And we have so much to learn from each other. And I, you know, like I when I was younger, I would read Neruda, but, you know, I also read the writings of Betances. And I want to read Julia de Burgos, but I will also read, you know, the poet of the poetry and the plays of Chicana artists, like, you know, Cheri Moraga, for example. You know, I love her. And, you know, I think it's very important that we celebrate by going deeper into understanding who we are, where we've come from, and dismantling the colonial history that has infiltrated our lives and the colonization of our lives. Pelo malo. That is one example right there. Don't use that language. Don't accept that language. Look, el cuco, you know, what is el cuco? Okay, el cuco. I think el cuco was colonialism and imperialism. But if you look at the, right, that's the biggest cuco, imperialism. But if you look at like the stories of Juan Bobo, for example, right, they always paint him as black. Why? We have to look at that. Why is Juan Bobo always black? The one that, you know, has to be saved by God and by fate because he can't get out of his own way. Why is he always depicted as black, or most often depicted that way? We need to look at that. We need to look at why, where that came from. We need to look at what we're teaching our children, and even the language that we use in terms of describing our own bodies. Mira que culona está. Did I just hurt the FCC rules here? But, you know, how to describe, but to describe bodies in derogatory ways, where did that come from? Where did it come from to straighten our hair, to bleach our faces? Where did that come from? And if we're going to celebrate who we are, we have to know who we are. It's not enough to just say, yo soy boricua, and wave a flag. If you don't understand where that flag came from, if you don't understand who made that flag, if you don't know all of your national anthems, and you only know the pretty one, the safe one, you know, it's very important to know the revolutionary history of your people, and know how your people are people, our people, my people. We are people of resistance. Puerto Ricans don't just sit and roll over and play dead. Puerto Ricans fight back, and we have a long history of fighting back. One of my heroes is Blanca Canales. We got a very long history of fighting back. And I think it's very important that that history be taught in the schools. And if the schools don't teach it, that we teach it to ourselves. Nobody taught me my history. I'm an autodidact. I had to go teach myself because I didn't even know the word Taíno. I never heard that in school. I never heard Agüevana. I heard about Juan Bobo, but I didn't hear about Agüevana. There's a problem there, and we cannot play it safe. We cannot be accommodationist or assimilationist. I don't want to assimilate into any culture except my own. I want to assimilate deeper into myself, into knowing who I am, where I came from. And I'm always studying and I'm always learning. And I feel like I know so little. And that I can never live long enough to know it all. But I'll die trying.
Magdalena, it's such a delight listening to you, and I want to thank you for giving us this time to go just slightly on the surface of these many different aspects of what representation is, of what we are celebrating and what we should be doing to continue celebrating appropriately. But nonetheless, a reason to celebrate that we are doing this, that we are connected virtually and having this beautiful exhibit, Roots, Raíces, in Springfield, and that you are part of it.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be part of it. And also look at us. We don't know each other. And we just went pretty deep. Because you invite that with your openness, with your gestures, with your face. You let me know it's okay to be who I am. And we all need to do that for each other.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Magdalena. So we will continue. This is a celebration, like you said. It doesn't stop. It's not just a month. It's our whole life.
And we got to keep using those libraries. And if the books aren't there that represent us, ask for them. A lot of people don't know they have the right to do that. You can tell a library, I would like this book on the shelves, and they will get it for you.
Thank you so much, Magdalena, for all your work, for all your words, for your wisdom and your energy. You are a true inspiration for our community, and I really appreciate this time listening to you. It's such an honor. And
I appreciate my time with you, and I appreciate the community that inspires me and that welcomes me. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm very honored to be in that exhibit. It's a beautiful exhibit. It's so alive. I wish so much I could be with you in person, but since I can't, I invite you into my writing lair, and we have our virtual exchange. My name is Magdalena Gómez, and I am the Poet Laureate of Springfield, Massachusetts from 2019 to 2021. And I want to share with you some of the poems that I wrote throughout and during this pandemic. I keep saying throughout because I want it to be over, but it isn't over yet, is it? But the light is coming. Let's hold on, and let's hold on to each other. The light is coming. The light is coming. The healer in chancletas. The healer in apartment 6F never locks her door, ready to be robbed or worse. She insists there must be no gates between people, that everyone who comes into her life is meant to be healed, even if it is by harming her. She knows the look in her eyes. She knows the look in her eyes burns through the most impenetrable deadness. The foulest of humans will feel something. I know my gift. It isn't mine to sell or hoard, called to give, so I give. Simple. They who are so smart and read too many books just to read them and not to feel them, are assured that I am loca. In this country, to have the guts to know yourself and to act on it is considered a moral deficit, since everyone plays the wrong guitar at the right time. These are God's mysteries that cannot be explained. That razor in your back pocket, put it on the table so you don't slice off your own ass as you try to slice my throat. I'll make you some coffee, and then you can do whatever you think it is that you came here to do. Don't even think of touching that crystal candy dish. It was my abuela's. Those caramelos are for my grandchildren. The ones I never see because my daughter thinks I'm a bad influence. You want your café con leche or black? Look, I'm out of sugar, so don't ask. Jack's Corner Cigar Store, 941 Southern Boulevard in the South Bronx. Oh, there's that shadow there. I'd like to get rid of that shadow in my eyes so you can really see my eyes. And there we are. No. There we go. Wait, where should I go? Here we go. Let's keep the reality of this. I like it. We're having our own reality show. Okay, sure, I could sit here and pretend that everything's going to be perfect, but it's not, it's there. Ooh, that light's good, huh? What do you think? Okay. Oh, why is it gone now? Wait, let's see. There we go. Now, let there be. I told you there'd be light at the end of all this. See, there's always light. We just have to know where to look. Jack's Corner Cigar Store, 941 Southern Boulevard, South Bronx, where Papi bought Palumbo cigars to soak in cognac, freeze, thaw, smoke. Where I had my first chocolate egg cream, bought my first big girl candy bar, payday. Half for Papi, half for me. We loved peanuts, moaned as our tongues pressed caramel against el rufo of our bocas. My half lasted longer. I broke a little more off for Papi, the vig on my weekly nickel allowance. He thanked me like I'd given him 100 Hamza, a loaf of black bread, a diamond pinky ring, a red motorcycle, a house by the sea, his eyes filled with tears, telling me I was the only sweetness he would ever need. He tried to give the candy back. I told him Mommy taught me that refusing a gift was an insult, un desprecio. He said Mommy can turn roses into insults, then insisted we should buy chocolate cherries for her, and I felt like it was church. The kind where no one yells at you and they only speak the truth. Papi bought an extra one for me. Chocolate cherry, cherry chocolate, chocolate cherry, cherry chocolate, chocolate cherry, cherry chocolate. Save it for when el cuco comes. Eat it in front of him. Show him you are not afraid. And show el cuco that he is un come mierda. Papi protected me from winter all the way home. His eyes, the sadness of Campejondo. Legacy. No one ever warned me I would become a poet. Mommy said a wife, but first, the secretarial pool. Bobby said, a muckraking journalist. Theo said, lawyer of Satan. First kiss cousin said, doctor. I said, auto mechanic. The rules said, no girls at Gompers Tech. Mommy said dresses, I said pants. Mommy said I did everything like a boy. I liked that. She took scissors to the baseball jacket gift from Flor, the neighbor with pretty scarves around her neck. Legs like Betty Grable. Papi said she walked like a man. Mommy concurred. Papi left his coffee to go strangle a chicken at the vivero. Papi was a poet. Always living allegories. Daughter. Like father. Storefront Iglesia. Reverendo held a megaphone assuming the hearing impairment of God and the faithful. Plaster crumbled behind paneled walls, the starving mice of impeccable cleanliness. Chirped along the bleached floor seam, seeking refuge from a Bronx February. I learned the meaning of migraine in the repetition of John 3:16. God gave up his son so all might have immortal life. Another 5 rounds of chapter and verse and I would be dead. I left my offended mother, convinced I would burn in hell. She never recovered. Neither did I. So I let you into the intimacy of my home and my life, because intimacy is one of the ways that we heal ourselves and each other. Can't be afraid of intimacy. I wrote this on January 2nd, 2020. Happy New Year. Just because I forget doesn't mean I don't remember. You think because I can't find my thought in the time that your impatience allows that somehow this woman you say is getting old can't remember shit. Now tell me, why in the world would I want to waste my cells in the retention of life's vulgarities, injustices, disparities, or smother my lobes in somber tones with persistent inequalities? I respect memory. I respect the gift of this brain. I save its fuel for the preservation of revolutionary action, of worthy names. Fred Hampton, Shirley Chisholm, Don Pedro Albizu Campos, Lolita Lebrón, Polly Murray, Nina Simone, Bayard Rustin, Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, Teenie Harris, Claudette Colvin, Samuel Lind, Harlem Hellfighters, Rebecca Lee Crumpler, Roberto Clemente, Malcolm X, Bessie Coleman, Mayra Santos Febres, Bobby Hutton, Blanca Canales. I save any space that has been erased for the ones rising to take their place. The ones made of courage and well-worn books, stories hurt deep, meant to keep, to seep through life into howls of resistance or blessings to weep. So many thousands worthy to name, don't let them die on shelves or graves. Breonna, Breonna, Breonna. Everyone knows what I'm saying. by just the speaking of your first name. But where is the justice? Rise up, you living, rise up, you dead. Tell the stories left untold of who fought for justice and who sold their souls. When you tell the story, tell it whole, sometimes less, sometimes more. Truth is ephemeral until wisdom minds the store. Nothing but bones should die with the old, flesh, blood, and marrow. Let the new life grow, flesh, blood, and marrow. Let the new life grow. Remember on whose shoulders you stand. Before you take flight, know how you will land. Save memory for the worthy, energy for the light. Tell history, catch you later. But never, ever, never say goodbye. So here we are together, sharing stories. Some of you are looking at artwork. I thank Rosemary Tracy Woods for inviting me to share with you in this way, and Ashley Zerpereda as well. And I thank everyone involved with Art for the Soul, Billy Meyer, all of the artists, the board members. Art for the Soul is a very special place, not only in the city of Springfield, and makes us so very proud, but also in this region and throughout New England. Now, the saying goes, and I believe it was Maya Angelou, and if I'm wrong, someone will correct me, I am sure, who said, "You may not remember who someone is, but you will always remember how they made you feel." And that's how I feel about listening to other languages other than my own. I love hearing languages that I don't understand, so I can have the experience of knowing how those languages make me feel. And listening to a multitude of diverse languages always lifts up my heart and sparks my imagination. So I want to share with you as my final poem one that I wrote in Spanish. And if you are not a native Spanish speaker or don't understand Spanish, I want you to think about how it makes you feel and why it makes you feel what you feel. Palo. Now, when my computer puts the shade on, I don't know if you see that or not, and I won't know until this recording is over, but I just trust that you'll forgive me. I'm doing the best I can with the technology I have at home. And I thank you again for listening and for welcoming me, all of you, and those who are guests at the gallery, and those who make it all possible. Palo. Dueña de su ser, mujer, dueña de su ser, no quiere tu pena ni maldita caridad, solo requiere justicia sembrada en igualdad. Alzar bandera no basta, vale nada sin viento, turbinas de obra los cuerpos liberados de sentimiento. Dueña de su ser, mujer, dueña de su ser, dueña de su ser, mujer, dueña de su ser. No me pidas ser sufrida, soy el palo, no la astilla. No me pidas ser sufrida, soy el palo, no la astilla. Hormigas campantes sin fronteras, pasamos por donde nos guste. Al picar, caemos en cuenta. Ser hormiga es ser guerrera. Dueña de su ser, mujer, dueña de su ser, dueña de su ser, mujer, dueña de su ser. Conjuramos montes, sistemas que reviven, aunque los quemen, generaciones siguen. ocultos en ojos de girasol, en pecas de azucenas. Almas indígenas nos palpitan en las venas. Conjuramos montes, sistemas que reviven aunque los quemen. Generaciones siguen ocultos en ojo de girasol, en pecas de azucenas. Almas indígenas nos palpitan en las venas. Hormigas, curanderas. Bordamos mantos de amor con sangre y arena, hermanas todas, aunque nacidas en la luna, ninguna es ajena. Dueña de su ser, mujer, dueña de su ser, dueña de su ser, mujer, dueña de su ser, no quiere tu pena ni maldita caridad, solo requiere justicia sembrada en igualdad. ¿Cuál remedio, mi pueblo, en las heridas de hoy? Hoja, semilla o raíz. ¿Cuál remedio, mi pueblo, en las heridas de hoy? Hoja, semilla o raíz. No hay cadena de hierro para cuello de hormiga, no hay cadena de hierro para cuello de hormiga. No me pidas ser sufrida, soy el palo, no las astillas. No me pidas ser sufrida, soy el palo, no la astilla. Guerrera, curandera, hormiga. Thank you so much. This is your neighbor in Springfield, Massachusetts, Magdalena Gómez. I look forward to the moment we can all meet again in person, connect, and I can share my work with you and hug you at the end. So feel it now. I send it to you. Un abrazo fuerte a todos.